Good evening again. Welcome to another edition of Carl's Conversations. It is Friday, December 11th, 7 p.m., and we have assembled an all-star panel this evening to talk about something that is probably way more interesting than I thought it was going to be when I first booked the show. Tonight, we're going to deal with voter fraud. Are we looking at voter fraud? Are we looking at some other type of fraud? Are we looking at a fraud? We will see. As usual, my number one fan, my wife Tisha, is the first to greet us. Thank you, sweetheart. Hey, I want to encourage all of our viewers. You have a few moments to start a watch party, to share. Let everybody know that Carl's Conversations is on again. And we're going to be talking about what's going on with the 2020 election still. As we all know, there was much going on. For those of you who don't know, just a few minutes ago, it was reported on most of the major networks that the Supreme Court has kicked the case that Texas brought. And we know that several other states joined in to that case. Also, there were 126 Republicans from Congress who joined in as far as being supportive of the case. The Supreme Court came back, and amongst several other things, they said that Texas really had no standing to bring that case. Amongst other things, it was a short, a one-page response. It looks like it was unanimous. There were no dissenting briefs. I think there was just something from Alito and Thomas saying that Texas did have a right to file because the Supreme Court is the jurisdiction when states have an issue with each other. But they said they would have granted no other relief beyond allowing them to file. So, gentlemen, here we are. Like I said, when I booked this show over a month ago, I figured that we would have a few things to talk about. I didn't know it was going to be this much, right? And so I want to introduce my panel, tremendous panel tonight. Mr. Marlon Wilson is here from Stafford, Virginia. Mr. Timothy Wright Jr. is here from Virginia Beach. And Mr. Dame is here. Dame, I believe you're in D.C., right?
No, man, I'm right here in the backyard. I'm in Woodbridge.
Okay, cool. All right, there it is then. You got that NYDC up there, you know.
Yeah, man. Transplant.
We can hear that in New York. Is that Brooklyn?
Well, I was born in Brooklyn, but I was actually, my formative years was in Long Island.
Oh, okay. I got some people out there. I'm going to think of the area in a minute. Uniondale.
Yeah, right up the road from me. I'm exit 21 in the building, Roosevelt, New York. So Uniondale is right up the block. Yeah.
All right. Somebody know what you're talking about. It just ain't me. You know what I mean? But gentlemen, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to all of you, give you a moment to introduce yourself to the audience, who you are, what you're all about, so they know who we're talking to. We'll start with Mr. Wilson, then Mr. Wright, and then Mr. Dane.
Yes, sir. So Marlon Wilson here. Of course, I'm a resident of Stafford, veteran. I'm also a transplant here, but this is the place I decided to stop and live and raise my family. I'm also a businessman here. I'm in the business of IT. So I'm an executive at my company. I also serve my community in different ways through various groups here, doing community organizing, outreach. Also do it through my ministry at church. I'm a minister also at church. I'm also a part of the Economic Development Authority here in Stafford as well. And I choose to also serve my community from a business standpoint, ensuring that we have businesses that thrive here in Stafford, but also strategically focused on those marginalized and underserved businesses that are in our Black and Brown communities as well.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. We appreciate it. Mr. Wright.
Hello. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Timothy Wright Jr., high school teacher, and I work alongside my father in ministry and just a news junkie. That's pretty much it.
We like it. Mr. Wright is a frequent flyer here. And here's his inaugural visit on Carl's Conversations along with Mr. Wilson. Mr. Dame, please tell us something about yourself, sir.
All right. Well, my name is actually Damon Cunningham. Most of my friends call me Dame D. So Dame D is just a nickname growing up. I'm originally from New York, so we moved down here to DC. Now it's been about 25 years. So I'm a transplant. This is my home. So Dame D NYDC is just kind of the moniker. I am the proud host of the Two Mics Up podcast. You can hear us every Monday. Right now we're on hiatus. I also am a proud senior program manager for one of these ABC agencies here in the area. And man, I just like good conversation, and I really love what you're doing, Carl. Glad to be on.
Well, thank you. We're hoping to have a good conversation this evening. Well, gentlemen, here we are at this stage, December 11th. The election was November 4th. And the major claim, not just by our current president, but millions, he has millions who follow him, who are very disgruntled about our election, not just the outcome, but there are many, many accusations of voter fraud, different types of voter fraud. There are several people who have signed affidavits and from what I understand, have testified in front of the several state legislatures where former Mayor Giuliani, who is the president's personal lawyer, where he has taken the case. I do find it peculiar that with all of these accusations and with all this supposed evidence, they find it very difficult to prove this in court. And so the purpose of tonight's show is to explore, what do we think about voter fraud? Do we believe that the country has been duped? Do we believe there's a vast conspiracy to have Mr. Biden elected? Or do we believe that maybe Mr. Trump is up to his usual shenanigans, or somewhere in between? And Mr. Wilson, I'm going to ask for you to give us your input first, sir.
I'll be glad to. It's amazing that we have the current administration talking about voter fraud, and it seems to be that the voter fraud is only in the states that he thought he should have won. There's no voter fraud in North Dakota. There's no voter fraud in Tennessee. It's only in the states, in the battleground states, that he thought he should win. So we've been, I would say, in the Black and the brown community, the marginalized community, we've been talking about, voter suppression for a lot of years. We've been talking about fraud for a lot of years in the aspect of, having your names taken off rolls to vote, having different laws changed on the dime to keep you from having the access to vote, moving voting polls, just all of the things that they've done throughout the years, all the tactics they've used. And it's amazing to me that we have this administration with the right? I don't know what you say in New York, but to have that kind of kahunas or whatever you want to call it, to really now talk about voter fraud. And it's amazing to me that we have so many Republicans now that are behind it, when this has been the most secure election we've ever had, right? And many of you that are in IT, you understand that he had a cyber security expert who knows cybersecurity, who was over ensuring that this election was safe without anyone hacking and all of this, right? He said this was the most secure, right? He was appointed by Trump. His background is in cybersecurity. He said it was the most secure. Since he said it was the most secure, based on his expertise and based on the results of the voting, he was fired by Trump.
Well, amazing. Just before I go to Mr. Wright, we do have a guest on, Mr. Gwill, someone I went to school with. He's made a comment about false prophets. Mr. Gwill, if you're still on and you want to explain what you mean, we'll be more than welcome to deal with your comments or questions. Everybody's welcome. People don't necessarily have to agree with us. The motto of my show is Carlsconversations is a safe place to have difficult conversations. So we welcome even dissenting opinions. All right. We only ask that you be respectful. That's the only rule here. All right, Mr. Wright, what do you think about voter fraud? What do you think is going on?
Mr. Wilson really expressed many of my sentiments, and that was one thing that I was saying as soon as this rigmarole of voter fraud. Why is there only fraud? If it's widespread, that would have to include states that you won as well. So for there only to be fraud in states that you lost, I just think that it's specific states that would disrupt 270. I think that's really what it is. I also agree that the fraud is much larger than what he's talking about in the form of suppression. Even when you think of the rudiments, or not the rudiments, the foundation, or why the Electoral College was even established, one of the biggest components of putting that together was to justify slavery. So you have a very archaic system that is, still has its utility, but even at its root, it was counting people that weren't not able to even vote. And even when you think of more fraud, if you will, back in 1920, women were able to secure the right to vote, and there didn't have to be another law passed or reauthorized to ensure their right to vote. But yet the Voting Rights Act has to be reauthorized. So yeah, I think there is fraud, but not in the sense that he says. But I just think this is just another case of what has already been present in our country. It's just been emboldened to speak out and act. And that is, I don't have to accept what it is that you want. It's a very colonistic mentality. I just take what I want, regardless of what you say, regardless of what truth is there. If I want this, I will take it. And I just think, just like the brother said, you're setting a precedent, but I don't think they care about setting precedents because they're worried about right now. Because even when time elapses, like I've had to, say a few things to people on Facebook, not that I had to, but I felt compelled. Like there's this thing going around, oh, there's no such thing as the office of the president-elect. And then I post a picture of Donald Trump with his banner, office of the president-elect, Donald Trump. It's like, I just want to be angry when something doesn't go my way, and that's fine. I respect the fact that you voted for who you voted for. It was your choice. And I think that's one thing we have to learn, or whoever. You can't force what you feel and what you think on somebody else. Respect the fact that that's their choice, but you also have to respect truth as well. And I think that's where we have to find the balance.
Just before I bring you in, Dame, I want to butt in here. Mr. Wright, I absolutely agree with that. And I have tried to say many, many times, even though I personally do not believe there was widespread voter fraud as being thrown up against Mr. Biden, but I'm not so locked in that I can't see truth. I have a person that's close to me that we have these jousts because there's some things that we disagree with politically, but I have much love and respect for him and he for I. But I'm really answering Mr. Guil here. He said, massive voter fraud, you men are deceived. My thing is, I'm wondering why the Trump legal team is having such a hard time proving this in court. It appears to me that just about every case that his team has brought and other Republicans have brought claiming voter fraud, from what I understand, even some of the sworn affidavits have been thrown out as uncredible. And Mr. Guil now says that's fake news. So, it appears that this case is being tried more in the court of public opinion than cases. And we know that the Supreme Court just kicked the most recent case, saying that the state of Texas had no standing to bring that case. So, Mr. Damon, what do you think about the voter fraud accusations?
Well, first of all, I want to agree with the two gentlemen before me. And I do kind of want to piggyback on what you're saying about Mr. Guil. I kind of take voter fraud to a whole nother level. This is kind of, fake news or how we dress things up. This to me goes back to early on in my readings as a criminal justice major, and this goes back to the 80s of the ideological subversion of America. And we've gone, and we are now in the fourth phase. There's four phases, which really encompass this. And, we went through a period of time where there was a demoralization of America. And this goes back to an interview a lot of you may be able to see. There was a Russian spy by, I believe his name was Brezhnev. He talked in 85, where there's a 25 to 30-year process of demoralizing America or the citizens of America. And this started back in the Cold War of actually in the 60s. Then there's a destabilization period that takes anywhere from 5 to 7 years. And the key factors in that is shaking up your economy, the breakdown of foreign relations, our defense systems. We started, even if you look at today, we look at more Marxist and Leninist or fascist statements being introduced into our democracy. The third stage was the crisis, or what I like to call the gas. Trump was the gas. They threw gas on the ground. And right now we're in this fourth stage where we're dealing with normalization. Now the normalization is going to be shaky, mostly because, this administration is walking in, all of this gas is on the ground. And really, no matter what they do, it's not going to be right. It's going to be mostly viewed wrong by those like Mr. Gill or Will saying, not to say he's a Trump supporter, but I think he follows along that this ideology that's been subverted here in America, that these things, like, we're being fooled. I think he's actually being fooled and buying into that subversion that so many Americans are buying into, and they're using, voter fraud as another way to continue to kind of deflect from what's really going on. And, when he says we're being deceived, I think people like him and the populace are being deceived.
Well, I will tell you the things that I see from Mr. Gwill are things that I hear. He's saying nothing new here. These are things that I hear from most of the people who do support Trump. They say that many of us are recipients of fake news, but I wonder what makes them think that the news that they get is so true. I really do wonder that. What do we think about these comments? This is an open question. He's claiming socialism and Marxism, and but I would say that what Mr. Trump is doing is very un-American. And this is the point I make. And I'm not an anti-Republican. I have voted for Republicans. I vote for them. I'm an independent. But for me, Trump was not digestible to me. He was not a man of character. When we look at his business career, we see corruption of even as a young man through his career, and many people who've done business with him have said that. And so for me, the best judge of future behavior is past behavior until we see change. I think most people would agree with that. So he's not been known to be a truth teller. He's not been known to be an honest man. He played this card very early when he made this statement that the only way that he could lose is if they cheated. I felt like then that he knew he was probably going to lose, and he was trying to throw salt in the game at that time. And then on election night at 1 o'clock in the morning, when he came out and pretty much claimed victory, I said, no, he has to know better. We know that there was going to be a huge turnout. We know that there were many, many millions of mail-in ballots. Whether you agree with them or not, they're legal. We knew that. And we know, if you know anything about elections, the mail-in ballots are normally not counted on election night. Like in the state of Virginia, for mail-in ballots, it is a legal ballot as long as it is postmarked by election day and is delivered to the election office by 4 p.m. the third day after the election. So that means if your mail-in ballot got to your Virginia office by 4 p.m. on Friday after the day of the election, that was a legal ballot. So we know that all the counting was not going to be done on election night. Anybody who understands how elections are run knows that. So you got to look at it and say, now, what were you really trying to communicate? And Mr. Wilson, I'll start with you. What are you thinking about all this?
So it's amazing that you hear the normal talking points, right? And things like Biden is being paid off, owned by China, and China is buying judges. It's whatever Trump says, it goes, right? So, and it's amazing to me also that, as we know, Trump has more investments in China than anyone. He used China to make a lot of his goods, his ties, material that he's received from his buildings. He has more investment in ties to China than anyone. But that doesn't matter. If he says, "Oh my gosh, Biden is paid by China," okay, then those talking points, those kinds of folks will just take it. And then they talk about fraud, and I'll always say, prove it, because no one has proven that there was widespread fraud whatsoever. It just has not been proven. And it's not that I'm saying that it has not been proven, and the people that are saying it hasn't been proven are Democrats. We're talking about Republicans who voted for Trump, saying to Trump and everyone else, this election in my state was fair. The votes that were counted was fair. Everything was done legally. We have people watching from both sides of the aisles. Everything that we've done within my state, within my district, was done with a fair election. And guess what they say? I voted for Trump and wanted him to win, right? But it doesn't matter. If Trump says they're wrong, then the people that back him just say, "Oh yeah, he's right." I hate to say this, but it just reminds me of this herd mentality where people are more followers than they are leaders, right? And they get to a point where they don't rationalize things in their heads about what's going on. Someone can be very polarizing, and they will just whatever that person says, they go with it and they believe it, no matter if it's rational to them. At this point in time, they're polarized, and that herd mentality, they're just going to go with it and believe whatever they say.
All right, Mr. Wright, what do you think about what we're saying so far?
Well, I think in the grand scheme of things, once again, I'll put it to you like this. Over the past few months, really the past couple of months, I've had the pleasure of reading the Bible cover to cover. And it was the first time actually doing it. And I'm actually on my third time through right now. And the most interesting thing that I saw about Jesus was the fact that Jesus didn't spend a lot of time trying to convince anybody who he was. It's like, I'm going to tell you, it's up to you to believe whether or not I am who I am, because I know who I am. And I think that's the thing that is, I wouldn't even say frustrating, it's just what I noticed. Because like right now, no disrespect to your guests, but it doesn't matter if I say the sky is blue. If you want to believe that it's red, who am I to tell you that it's not? Because it's going to become a very futile battle, because you're talking to someone or those that have a mentality that refuse to accept what it is that you're given. Because even when it comes to abortions, well, that's a very good question. Was Jesus a Republican? That would be my question, because I don't believe that he was, nor do I think Jesus was a Democrat. And like, even when it comes to trying to bring morality into it now, when we don't talk about lies, we don't talk about 3 wives, 5 kids, 3 different moms, all same times. Like, you can't pick and choose when you want moral authority to apply, when you want fact to apply, because otherwise you're not going to have anything stable. And while we're at it, Scripture does talk about a double-minded man being unstable in all his ways. So if on this side I can be moral, and on that side I can put my morals to the side, which is it? So my thing would be for anybody, especially if they're led from a Christian perspective, would be to really step back and say, what is God saying? Because I don't necessarily feel that it's a God thing to let something run rampant and you see that it's not based or grounded in any kind of truth. But if you decide what truth is and you decide what facts are as it suits your needs, then exactly, he who is without sin cast the first stone. I would agree. And I'm not casting any stones, but at the same time, I'm saying think, step back versus hearing what's constantly being put out, because at the end of the day, we're all influenced, especially in the age of social media, having things recycled to us. It then becomes our reality. We live in virtual reality. Every Google search, everything that you do, you're going to get more and more and more of it. So you're thinking that you're getting good information. But when you unplug, step back, pray fast, compare it in light of scripture, if that's the route that you want to go, then you might really see it can't always be somebody else. Sometimes it has to be you. It can't always be somebody else lying. Sometimes it's you. And a wise man once told me, some problems are me problems, some problems are them problems. I only have control over me problems. I can't solve them problems. So at the end of the day, just chill. That's what I say.
Hey, Dame, I'm gonna bring you in just a minute. I find that is a very common argument for supporters of Trump, the abortion issue, the Second Amendment issue, and I've said many, many times. I'll say it again. I personally abhor abortion. I I shudder when I think about it. I'm pro-life, no doubt about it. But I'm not the kind of pro-life that I think many of them are. I'm pro-life from conception to the grave. And I'm grieved. I'm so grieved many times when I talk to pro-lifers, and they are very big on protecting the unborn child. But many times after the child is born, they support policies that will keep that child in poverty. Now, I'm not saying this is true for all pro-lifers, so don't jump on me here now. But I'm saying many that I have talked to. But I agree that sin is sin. It's one thing to say I support Trump because he's against abortion, but even those who support him must agree, if you love truth, that he is a liar. He's a big liar. He's been caught in so many lies that it's comical, right? It's comical, and he's a dishonest person. So I agree that we can't you can't have a mixed bag. If you support Trump, you support Trump. That's fine, but don't get into the deal where only a Christian, if you're a true Christian, you could only support Republicans or Trump. I think that you have way crossed the line, and you walked into an area of unrighteous judgment. Okay, Mr. Damon, what you got going on there?
Man, I'm in the cut on this one because these two gentlemen pretty much, voiced a lot of what I was feeling, and Mr. Quill here, he's a funny gentleman. I think, I challenge anybody. When I check my birth certificate, it didn't have a D on it for Democrat or an R on it for Republican. So these are learned values, and the values that we live in today. Carl, you said it. Look, the man is just a liar, and the society that we live in today, unfortunately, promotes that. When you watch the news or you hear about, you have so many people being found out that they've lied on their resumes, taking these high-paying jobs. They've never had a history in that field. All of these lies are promoted on a regular. This is the world that we live in. And like, my brother said, you turn on social media, they keep feeding you these same lies. We live in a time where people's mind are instant. It doesn't take much to feed someone's mind now, because nobody really sits down and goes back and asks the question why. I come from an era of why. If you tell me something, and even if it doesn't sit right with my spirit, I'm not going to accept it. I'm going to go read about it and challenge that person on those concepts. the abortion issue that this gentleman is throwing out. I'm going to leave that one alone because as a man, I'm pro-life, but it's the woman's decision at the end of the day. It's her body. A man will never have a child, will never bring a child into this world on his own. I think the best that we can ask for in a situation like that is to be involved in the conversation. But there's so many other things that go on with women who, we start going down, I hate to use this word, but, the rape and different things like that. There's so many things that go on. As a man, man, leave the abortion thing out. Stop using that as your go-to, just like, all the Trump supporters use Chicago, like that's the only planet that exists when it comes to black crimes and things like that. And I'm just going to sit back in the cut because those two brothers, they touched on it. And the gentleman over here, he's starting to get me a little riled up. I got to remember, this is not my show, so I'm just going to put myself on mute.
Can I address the Jesus issue?
Sure.
Real quick. Okay, let me quickly address that. And I get it, right? So he's a one issue person. Got it. But then let's look at who Jesus is. If you really say that you're a follower of Jesus, right? When Jesus was approached by the religious leaders, they were challenging him on the greatest commandments. Jesus said the greatest commandments is to love your God with all your heart and soul. And he said the second one is just alike. He said it is loving others as yourself, loving your neighbors as yourself. Those are the greatest commandments. Regardless of what you do in your life, those should be the very first thing that you do. Anytime you see someone with an issue, you should be there. You see someone oppressed, you should be there. You see someone poor, you should be there. You see someone marginalized, you should be there. You should be a community activist or community organizer. You should be on the front lines talking about people who are being oppressed, because this is what Jesus said is the greatest commandment, that you love others as yourself. And let me just take it a little bit further, because you're talking about who Jesus is. Jesus said in Luke 4, and you're looking at verses Luke chapter 4, 17 through 30. Jesus was coming back to his hometown, had an opportunity to speak, and he picks up the scroll, and he goes to, he was actually given the scroll of the book of Isaiah. He goes through there. All right, he goes through the scroll. He gets to the part about who he is. This is who Jesus says he is. And so I wonder, would he be a Republican today with who Jesus says he is? Jesus says, I have come. This is why I've come. This is who I am. I am anointed to give good news to the poor. I am here to proclaim freedom for the prisoners. I am here to recover the sight for the blind. I am here to set the oppressed free, and I'm also here to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. That is who Jesus said he is. That's who, not my words, Jesus' words. That's who Jesus said he is. So I wonder, would he be accepted in the gentleman who's talking in his society today if that is what he's here for, if that is who he say he is? I'm not sure if he would be accepted saying, this is who I am. So I challenge him about who Jesus really is. You want to vote Jesus? Vote on for those issues, who Jesus said who he really is.
Well, I think you got your answer, Mr. Wilson. I think he gave the deuces sign. So I think you proved your point.
Well, I know that was a little off the beaten path, but when we have people who come on and dissent, I want to let them know that they have a voice here too. I've often said that Carlsconversations is a safe place to have difficult conversations, and that one can be difficult. But back to the original programming here. This is what I find a little comical about those who are fighting against the election results now. I'll be the first one to tell you, and let me tell you that I have taken this to God in prayer. My prayer has consistently been concerning this, that if there is any conspiracy anywhere to deceive the voters, that it be exposed. I don't care if it's Democrat or Republican. I don't care. I want plots and conspiracies to do wrong to be exposed, right? But I find it funny. We know that Trump was a controversial candidate. He's been a controversial president. But after he was declared the winner, Hillary didn't come out that night, but she came out the next day. She conceded, and we moved on. Those who disagree with him have disagreed with him on policy. I know that Trump supporters feel like he's been hammered the whole way, but I think his hammering has been self-inflicted. But as it pertains to fraud, for what I see, Mr. Guil made a statement that there's been, I guess, hundreds of sworn statements. But I'm going to tell you something that I've seen. I saw one case where the judge threw out the woman's statement. He said, this woman doesn't understand the election process. It's like if a crime happens, right? Mr. Wilson, something happens on your block, right? You don't know the whole story. You just know what you saw. You come tell the police, hey, I saw this guy right here that you got in that car running down the street. He was letting them off. That's all you saw. What you don't know is that man who you saw running down the street letting them off was because somebody just pulled up to the house and snatched his daughter. If they'd have got your daughter, you'd have been down there letting them off too. So I wonder, and I'm not saying this is fact, but I wonder with some of those statements, did you see a snapshot of something saying that we had trucks to pull up with ballots in the middle of the night? That doesn't necessarily sound like crime to me. You know how many millions of mail-in ballots that you had? Is there a particular time of the day that the trucks have to come? I don't know what the process is. What time does the mail-in facility drop them off at a certain facility? What times do the truck run? I don't know those things. So just the fact that a truck pulled up and delivered ballots at 2:00 in the morning doesn't sound like crime to me. What are y'all thinking about what you've heard about what the sworn statements are saying about the funny things that they saw? Mr. Dame, I'll start with you.
Well, I mean, just listening to you, I'll be honest. So, like when you say expose and things like that, this whole process has really, Trump and his efforts to overturn the election, it was a stress test. And I think it put a stress test on the entire electoral system as a whole. Now, although we're coming to, now realize through the Supreme Courts and all the other things, his efforts have failed. I think though what it's done though is this really exposed the loopholes. Like you said, we don't know what all the systems are within the infrastructure, but what he's allowed through this is allowed, God forbid, if we have to go through someone else like this, that will even continue to fight even further, to continue to expose, these different type of loopholes that are there. We'll probably look at this months from now and laugh and think, maybe this strategy was just like utterly ridiculous. I mean, some of us are probably doing it now. But I just think it showed enough vague holes and provisions in our American election system, from the certification of, through the states and authorities, and just legislature alone. There's just a whole lot of uncertainty that surrounds all of this. And I just think he just like, pulling back the veil of, hatred, over the 4 years that he's been in office, he's just opened the veil of hatred in America. I think going through this process, he's also opened up and exposed some holes in our processes in our system that need to be addressed.
Well, when I believe her name was Melissa Caron, something like that. But when she and Rudy Giuliani were in Michigan at that sham of a hearing, to me, her testimony really sums up most of what it is that we've seen across the country. It's just the colonist mentality, even Christopher Columbus shouldn't be celebrated, but he's celebrated for discovering something that he wasn't really looking for. He was trying to get to the east and ended up in the west, and he's celebrated for discovering something that had been discovered thousands of years before. But because we say he discovered it, he discovered it. So I just think, like I said before, a lot of this is just a perpetuation of what I want, I take, regardless of how you feel, whatever facts, whatever logic. It doesn't matter if it doesn't suit my case. And just like I think Mr. Guil is no longer here, but it'll either be this is patriotism or it'll be this is my God first and country, whatever. The whole point, I just feel the greatest fraud in this election is happening right now. And I do agree with the brother that this is a stress test. And I think, unfortunately, I'm not going to say unfortunately. I just want those that are in power right now to see this for what it is and not dust it off as, oh, it's a one off. I think they need to be very vigilant. And I don't think their vigilant needs to stop at, well, let me make sure that I address those that voted for me. Because it's one thing just to say, well, I'll be your president even if you didn't vote for me. There's a reason why millions and millions and millions of people voted for this man. I can't say if their reason or rationale was correct or incorrect, but with that being the case, a lot of people voted. More people voted for him than any time else in history. So a part of you governing and doing what else over the next course of these next 2 years heading up to the midterms, you need to really figure out what kind of messaging and what things need to be said. Because just approaching somebody on facts in a factless society is over and done with. It's not, because even to cry socialism, everybody wants to cry socialism, but nobody wants to talk about how all of those major corporations stepped in front of the small businesses to snatch up those dollars for, what is it, PPP, when they were well sufficient on their own. And nobody wants to talk about that. That's socialism. Nobody wants to talk about $750 in taxes and you're a supposed billionaire. That's socialism. You want to talk about China? I know I'm going off on the challenge. I'm just playing all his comments back in my mind. Bank of China is an actual tenant at Trump Tower. So that's what I'm saying. Like, when you're in a factless society, we have to figure out another way, because facts on their own is not going to be enough. You have to hear what these people want and address it too. So I don't know if that even answers the question. I'm just confused.
It does. Thank you. A whole bunch of folks are confused. Mr. Wilson.
No, I think you were absolutely spot on. Just to quote some of the things that some of the people who even in Trump administration, even the Secretary of State, Bill Barr said there's no widespread voter fraud. And I know that one of his the strategies of the administration is to go after judges and judges that Trump appointed. We know he's going after the Supreme Court, but it's just hearing. We know that this what's going on right now it truly is setting an environment in the future that we're really going to have to be careful. And I absolutely agree with that. With elections, that's going to be coming up in the future, even how we govern right now, because I think Trump is still going to be around for a long time to come. But fortunately, we do have people that realize that what their positions are. There was a judge that was appointed, a federal judge appointed by Trump, who said free and fair elections are the lifeblood of our democracy. And then he also said charges of unfairness are serious, but calling an election unfair does not make it so. Charges require specific allegations and then proof. And then also given his argument, he said we have neither here. So there is no proof. No proof is being presented to these judges. But it's really not stopping Trump's train from saying what he's saying, getting the dollars and the money from all the people, including the gentleman that was on, because I'm positive that they're giving to his fund to probably help him build his news station and something else so he can continue to build wealth and however he wants to, and then just to spew conspiracy theories as such.
I'm glad you said that, Mr. Wilson. That takes me to my next point. Because you're right. When you read, if you ever take the time to read what the judges are saying when they're kicking these cases, it's so cut and dry. It's very plain. And you wonder, even after you've had Republican judges, Democrat judges appointed by an array of presidents, even some appointed by Trump himself, who have kicked these cases out of court. So I'm looking at this and I'm wondering, I said, okay, there was a portion of people who really know that this is a farce, right? There's some people who understand what he's doing. This is really not about turning the election around. This is about power. This is about raising money. This is about since I can't have the house anymore, I'm going to tear it up so that when you get here, you can't enjoy it. There are many people who do know this, but there are some very gullible people who believe anything that their supreme leader says. And I figured out something a while ago, and this may be a little out there to say it, but it is one of my observations. I was wondering a couple of years ago, what is it about this fella that people seem to be fanatical about? I mean, when I think of him, I think about the fella that got them people to follow him to Guyana and got him to drink that Kool-Aid, Jim somebody, right? And then I realized that to some of these folks, he's not just their president, he's their God. And and some of these people who have made him their God are confessing Christians. And we know that the scripture tells us God said that he's a jealous God. He's not going to accept nobody putting a God or idol or anything before him. But I really truly do believe that many have, for whatever reason, it's something that I don't understand because he's so transparent to me. He is a manipulator. He is a controller. He is a whole lot of things, a narcissist. And I've been involved with people like that. Everything he's doing, classic for that type of person. So that's an open thing. What do you guys think about those in his camp that know what's up versus those who really are gullible and believe what he's saying?
I mean, I'll be honest with you. We've had 4 years of The Apprentice all over again. And the people in his camp, I mean, I'm just going to call it what it is. You know, we live in a capitalist society. And all he's done, and the people that are with him, like I said, they know he's wrong. They might have that much, this many ounces of moral in their soul, but it's all about, capitalizing and making money. He showed that to us when this pandemic started. All the people that he rolled out, your Walmarts, your Targets, your Amazons, the Jeff Bezos of the world. He showed you what he was about, and like my brother Timothy said, the PPE situation, they didn't give a damn about you, me, small business, minority America, small America. So he showed you what he's about. And really, and this is just my opinion, he's a dying breed. He's from that dinosaur, that old money that's about to die out. And they're watching the world change. And this was really that last hurrah. And like I say, the way that he talks, the venom that he has, like I said, if you really watch, he just pulled back that veil of America to let you know, hey, we're still here. And they're in your face with it. They want you to know about it. They want you to feel it. But this is like, I hate to say it, it's like a dying dog. Dog's gonna fight to the end. Mm-hmm. And we just have to be prepared and really as a community, how are we going to move forward, as a united block? Because we can't control that at the moment. We know this voter fraud is all fake news. All of this stuff came up with him. Like I said, we're on The Apprentice. He's putting on a show. He's very good at dividing and conquering. He'll say one thing, but then he's over here doing something else. But you still over here watching this. I mean, he's a great deceiver. Mm-hmm. But this is the society that we're in right now, that old dinosaur, that old money. And we, like I said, we just got to do our best to be united and get our seat at the table and don't ask for crumbs no more. We gotta demand and expect, what we want as a community moving forward.
All right. Listen, I'm going to put this comment up. This sister took time to write this, so I want to read it real quick. Cameron Lindsay wrote, Trump was all for mailed ballots. Then he seen he was losing to actual people getting out to vote. I have never seen so many curbside voters. Older people were voting. Young people were voting. I seen with my own eyes at the end of the day and the beginning, God does things his way. God tested us. We learned. Have no other God before me. Trump came with all the money, and that's it. That love of money. God talks about it. It is in his word, greed. Well, Miss Karen Lindsay, I think you have a point. Who wants to take that on along with the known and the unknown? Go ahead, Mr. Wright.
Well, just to chime in, I do agree with my brother Dame. Like, he is a very good deceiver. And one of the things that a deceiver does is have your attention so focused over here that you're not seeing what's going on over there. Because I was watching The View, and like I said, when it comes to my sources of information, I'll watch Fox. I may go to Breitbart. I'll go some of everywhere because I want to see what's out there. I don't want to just be force fed one train of thought. But with that being said, to see the Attorney General of New York State talk about investigations that are going on with civil charges that could eventually turn into criminal charges. Why do you think he's trying to work so hard to stay in office? So he can bide more time. That's my personal thought. But the other thing that I feel is there are some things that have been in plain sight over the course of this entire presidency that I don't feel his opposition did a good job in bringing light to, and I don't feel the news media did a good job bringing light to. Like even for Mitch McConnell, and I've said this on your show before, but Mitch McConnell's wife is Donald Trump's Secretary of Treasury. Not Treasury, excuse me, Transportation. She's in his cabinet. So why do you think Mitch McConnell is going to be in lockstep with everything that he says and does? Because he's employing his wife. So that's already a conflict of interest, but nobody says anything. So when you have these types of truths that are out there that you don't even work to speak on, because we're so used to Washington, D.C. just being a rubber stamp, and well, Washington, that's so far away, it doesn't have anything to do with me, and blah, 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 blah. Like, my thing is everything needs to be questioned. And I agree. We need to have a society where why is what we ask versus accepting everything as is. And I'm not saying dive into the pool of QAnon, but at the same time, question some things. And not enough questions are being asked. We just accept what it is that's being said. But I do agree that there is a sham. And I think my biggest gripe right now, as you said, the people that are in the know, the Mitch McConnells, they know. The Lindsey Grahams know. Why aren't you saying anything? Because truth be told, they could put this thing to bed a long time ago. But with all of you sitting there and not saying anything, and of course, a lot of people are saying, well, we're just holding out for the Georgia election. But even with that, that really shows you're spineless and you have no integrity. Like, especially Lindsey Graham, you talked about the man like he was a dog before he even came to office. And now I'll donate $500,000 here. Come on, man. Like, that to me is the biggest problem. Not these people out here that are misled because they're sheeple, but the people that are in the know, be it in your cabinet, be it that you're an elected official and you choose to remain silent. Being silent is being complicit in his nonsense. And to me, you have not a shred of integrity.
Mr. Wilson.
Yeah. So I know I absolutely agree. You're talking about a deceiver and a false prophet. You're talking about someone. So when we think about most people, they vote with their emotions, and he's able to generate emotions in them that gets them to the polls to vote his way. It's not that he's right on any issue. If you really truly ask these people what issue or what thing, they do talk about one thing. They say abortion, and of course, and I've been hearing them, which is why I went on my rant, talk about vote Jesus, which is ludicrous to me to even say that. But they vote on their emotions. They don't vote with truth. They don't vote with certain policies. The only policies that Trump is passing benefits Wall Street, the 1%, the 2%, those that are at that wealth. And it's not even benefiting the people that are going to the polls to vote for him, right? It's amazing when you look at during the President Obama's time, you had the Tea Party out there, and President Obama is working hard trying to pass legislation so that everyone benefits from health care. Well, the people that were out there who weren't working, well, I'm at work, they're out there, They need the health care that he's trying to get passed for them so that they can have it. That is what he's working on. Yet they're out there forming this Tea Party, talking about, Obama and not wanting him in office. And in my mind, I'm like, what he's doing benefits you more than it benefits me. I have a great paying job and great insurance. It's benefiting you. You need it. So it's amazing to me that we have these people that aren't benefiting from anything Trump is doing, right? And I think you said it, right? Mitch McConnell, those that know, that are in the know, they are benefiting from it. But the people on Main Street, the working class, they're not benefiting from it. And those are the ones that are actually going to the polls.
Well, I agree with so much of what I've heard. I do believe that there is a fraud going on, but I don't believe it's the fraud that they are talking about. I think the fraud is what we're talking about right now. Those people who know that he's full of it. And Mr. Wright, I agree with you. The word here is called integrity. I've often wondered what happens when they get to Washington, that they lose their moral compass. And I think there's something wrong with the two-party system, because it seems that once they get to Washington, they no longer are working for the people that put them there. They tend to be employees of the party. And that's where things get lost. And I think there's so much dirt and corruption. But the point I'm trying to make is, when you see something that is obviously wrong, what is it that you want to be elected again so badly that you seemingly sell your soul? You had to be a pretty skilled and talented person to get there. So if it costs you an election to stand up and say, this is not right, I just can't support this, I got to go back and look at my kids in the face. I got to look at my mother in the face. You understand what I'm saying? I have to see Christ on Judgment Day. I can't support this. What is it when they get to Washington that is so good or so bad that they seem to lose their souls? And something like this, which is so obvious, I would not allow myself to get whipped up on a conspiracy. Now, I will tell you, I'm a listener, right? Maybe I think a little different than the people. When these allegations first started coming about voter fraud, I didn't automatically believe or disbelieve. I was like, okay, the arena for this is the courts. Our system is set up so when things like this happen, we go to court. I'll say it again. None of these allegations have been proven in court. No jurisdiction anywhere in the United States at the state or the federal level has accepted any of these arguments as credible. Why is that? And why do, after all of that, you still have these millions who believe that they have been cheated out of an election? What is it? That's open. If y'all want to jump on it.
All right. Well, I'm going to start first. So I think, thank you, Elisa, because that is one of the problems. When they get there, it's about money. It's about capitalism. But I'm going to digress even with that. So being in office, they forget how to serve the community. And part of that is because, in my opinion, we regurgitate so many of the same people, like the Mitch McConnells. Mitch McConnell has been in office for 30 years. He's the richest senator from one of the poorest states in our nation. Blows my mind. But if we were to put caps, just like just cap them out 4 years, 8 years, you will probably get people who will go in to actually work for the people. But if I know that I can go ahead and ride 8, 10, 12, 20 years, I'm just going to collect a check. It's like being the 12th man in the NBA. If I can look, I'm playing in the NBA and I'm getting a check for it, and I don't have to do anything, because that's really what it becomes. They're just riding on. He hasn't really done anything, but he's capitalized the most and gained the most. And the other part of that problem is, by sitting for that long, though, this is why we have stagnant ideas, and this is why our country gets stuck. We have a person that has a mindset from 30 years ago. When we have all of this young talent out here, and if you put 4-year, 8-year caps, just like you do the president, get some of this fresh blood, fresh ideas. I would be willing to bet that you would get more subservient people in office working for their constituents and not working for the lobbyists and not working for that capitalistic gain. Just my thought.
Well, I think that's a good thought. Anybody else?
I agree wholeheartedly. I've been talking term limits, and I don't think that it should be limited to Congress. I think it should extend to the judgeships as well. I remember when John Warner, when I was a student at Old Dominion University, he came and he gave a speech to the student body, and that was when he was on his way out. And I remember a lot of what he talked about, and it was a very powerful speech. But one of the questions did arise about term limits, and his thing is, well, term limits come at the ballot box. But when you have people like the Mark Warners, John Warner, but even Mark Warner, he said that he would not be a career politician, but he ran again. And even our former governor, Terry McAuliffe, he's like, man, I enjoyed being governor. I think I want to run again. I do agree that things stagnate when people have a taste of that power. They don't want to let it go. And it becomes less about the people, and it's cloaked in I'm here to serve. It's cloaked in, well, this is patriotism. But at the end of the day, it's really serving their own interests. But even when it comes to a judge, as great as our BG was to some people, it was ridiculous to me that we were trying to keep that woman on life support to get through an election. You're 80, 90 years old. I mean, even when you read the scripture, after 50, you're not serving in the temple anymore. Let's get some young people to do some of this work. We have to open the door for the future. And that's not to say that we don't want anybody older, we don't want older ideals, but be kingmakers. Like, you could do so much more in the community, really creating a pool of leadership versus being the one that's always holding the mic. Then when you die, everything is in a tizzy. So I do agree, term limits. If the president has a possibility of 8, hey, you get 2. You get 12 in the Senate. You can get, or even if it's just non-consecutive, there needs to be something to break up that power. Because to me, there's nothing to celebrate. Well, he's been in public service for 30 years. Pressing a button saying yes or no, that means you're working for me. You're not doing nothing.
What an interesting perspective. Go ahead, Mr. Wilson.
Yeah, Mr. Wright, yeah, you're spot on, Dame, as well. It is about money, and it's absolutely about power. They don't want to pass it on to the young generation. They should, but they benefit too much from keeping it to themselves. They benefit too much from passing laws that continue to benefit them with the way things currently are, right? So they've been doing it. They've been doing very well, right? And if you've been doing well and you're greedy, right? You're greedy for money, you're greedy for power, you've been doing very well for it, you're going to want to hold on to it, right? And this is what it's about. It's about holding on to that greed, holding on to that power, and continuing to get money that some of these folks, you're right, they're 70 and 80 years old. What are they going to do with it? The money's gone. It's done. It's spent, right? But they still want to hold on to it, right? Because things are like it is right now. It's been that way, and they want to keep it that way. We absolutely need term limits. We absolutely need fresh blood. We absolutely need younger folks involved, people that are ready to get out and get work done. That's why we don't see things moving in the government. We see things slowly moving because we have people that are there that don't want to see change, right? And they are afraid of change. And those are the biggest things, I believe: power, money, because of greed and being afraid of change, that those things are going to be taken away from them.
So here's my question. And I know this is, is money and power the root of the ruse that we're seeing now? Because you got a ruse either way, right? Whether Trump is right about what he's saying, or if we're right, either way we got a ruse. Do you think that money and power is the root of it? If not, what is? Open question.
Well, so, and I think it goes both ways. So, see, since we don't own anything or have final say over anything, I'm going to say, yeah, it goes both ways. I think money and power, just because we live in a capitalist society. Um, that's really what everyone is striving for on some level. Um, and we live it and we watch it. We hear it every day. Those who know gain off of those who don't know. It's all about gaining more money and power. We talked about it with the PPE situation. I thought that was huge. How all of these corporations are garnering all of this PPE, but all of these small businesses and essential workers and restaurants and all nurses, doctors, and that are on the front line were struggling. And you look in Maryland, he had to work. Thank goodness, I guess, with his wife or through his wife to be able to get PPE brought in. So it's just all about money and power in this country. The more I have, and the fatter I get, and the more you struggle, the better some people feel. But I think we've become, I don't want to say accustomed, but this has kind of been that carrot that they dangle in front of us that we've assimilated into a system or society that wasn't really built for us to try to aspire to have that same thing. And that's going to be tough.
What can we do about it?
Whew. I mean, really? I think this goes back, in my opinion, just going back to understanding how do we push away from the table as a unit. On our show, like Marcus Garvey was a hot topic for me. And this man did so much in the 1920s as an immigrant from Jamaica with an 8th grade education. This man built transportation modes, not only over the road, but over the sea. He had his own newspapers. He had his own warehouses. He had his own industry. He has 6 million followers globally. Today, we live in a world where we have all of this technology. If we use that blueprint, and what I struggle with, like, take Black Lives Matter, love it, but they only have 2 million followers here in 2021 with all that technology. We shouldn't have one Black Wall Street. We should have multiple Black Wall Streets in every major city. So somewhere there's a disconnect where, like I said, I think we've tried to assimilate and integrate into a society that was not built for us. We have to really get the mindset to push away from that and embrace one another. We have 4 gentlemen here that are doing great things. Well, how do we barter with each other? How do we connect with each other? How do I become a mouthpiece for what you're doing in your community? How do we bridge those communities? How do we unite and tie that together to create transportation, let's say from Woodbridge to Norfolk? How do we expand? Who's out here with the money? What properties are available? What conglomerate groups can we get together to go and buy neighborhoods? But because it goes back to, like we were talking before, money is power. Well, let's flip that money into power that's going to be generational power, generational wealth, so that we can stand on the same ground. Stop selling or giving away our products. Everything you look here in America was either built or thought of or the genius of a Black man or a person of color. Well, instead of selling it, why not? You know what? If you want it, you have to invest in it. I'm not going to give it to you. And while you're investing in it, I want you to invest in my community. I want you to invest in the people that are here that look like me. We have to change some of our mindset too, to be able to make tangible changes.
Agreed, Mr. Wright. You took your mute off. You got something?
Well, I just want to piggyback off of what he said. I do agree with the question that you asked. Is money and power at the base of the rules? But if I don't have money and I don't have power, what's the next best thing? And I can't remember who said it, but it was something along the line of, a poor white man will always be better in the mind of, even the best of a Black man, because at least I'm not Black. So if it's now not about money and power because I don't have it, the next best thing that I do have is the power of my race. So I think not only is everything orchestrated to retain money and power, but at the same time, that power is not limited to governing per se, but it's just social power. Because even I was coming across some article I was reading not too long ago. I think it was maybe the day before yesterday. I don't remember the time span or when it was, but it was something about Los Angeles County. And I think it was something along the lines, so don't quote me, but out of the population, heavily Black. But there, of course, we know there's some white people represented there too, but the police stops, 80% of them were black or brown people compared to less than 20% that were white. So when you have that disbalance or imbalance, excuse me, it's going to throw everything off. Now, even what the brother was saying, I'm sure he's talking about, powernomics or, the black community really coming together. But at the same time, you really have to remember there are a lot of one percenters that are black that benefit from these policies that we have in place right now. So they can be, yeah, I'm voting for this out in the public, but what are they behind that curtain at the poll? You know what I mean? If I really going to vote for something that's going to take millions and billions away from me that I worked very hard for because I didn't have it as easy to accrue mine as they did. So it really comes back to what do you see as important? If you see community as important, cool. Then let's pour into that. But if you still are guided with, your greed or your capitalistic ambition to get more for yourself and keep more for yourself, then, that's not going to be the solution either. So I think one last thing, and I know I'm kind of all over the place,
No, you're good.
but I think that we as a community, if we're going to talk, about us as a unit, we have to do a better job of communicating what's already there. Because there are people that are making strides, but it's almost like everybody wants to make that stride on their own and be the first to do. Everybody wants to be a Marcus Garvey. Everybody wants to be this. Everybody wants to be that, instead of falling in line and really pooling together. Because I just came across there's an initiative right now. I don't know if you all seen Greenwood. It's like this new mobile banking app that Ambassador Killer Mike and Ambassador, what's my man? Andy. He was with Martin Luther King. Andy Young, thank you. Andy Young. Andrew Young. They're really trying to do something, but you already have United One. You already have this bank. Like, why do we need 17 of something? Because you're never going to get anywhere. So I just think there needs to be unification. There needs to be more collective thought and really seeing what we already have, because we have more than we really give ourselves credit for.
All right. Mr. Wilson, you got something?
Yeah. So I think the theme that we're hearing, the theme of what everyone is saying is unity. I think that we notice anytime you see any organization or group unify, and it's not in the benefit of the rich and the 1%, they have a problem with it. So one of the things that they want to do is keep us divided. They want to keep America divided. As long as they can do that, they can benefit from it. When we unify behind each other, we unify behind people that are doing the right things. We see someone that's creating wealth in some area, we unify behind them and support that. That is how we get through this, right? Because you're right. If we don't have the money and the power, then we should be able to have the unity to unify behind one another. And I think if we unify behind one another, then we have an opportunity to see change happen in our community, in our area, in our state, in America, with unity. And that's the most important thing. And I think, Mr. Wright said it, right? We got different people trying to do, everybody's trying to race to do it. Well, let's find someone who's doing the best job of it, and let's get behind them. Right. And we do want to invest in our community because others are doing it. Jewish brothers, they're investing in their communities. Asian brothers, they're investing in their communities. We have to invest in our communities, meaning that if I go out and I'm going to start a company or a business and I open a shop up, well, who am I going to use to do the painting? Who am I going to use to put the shelves up? Who am I going to use to get the deliveries there? Who am I going to use for banking? Because we have to continue to invest in our own community. And that is how we get through this.
I think we're all right. Here's the $1 million question. Let's just say that another case is brought by Trump's team. Let's say that there's some information that is founded, and we discover that there actually is a widespread conspiracy. They actually did find cheating, enough so that the election is overturned. Would we, us four, would we accept that? And even though we may not have voted for Mr. Trump, would we accept that and do what we're asking them to do now? I'm gonna start with you, Mr. Dane.
Man, I'm not accepting nothing. I'm not. Nah, I'm sorry. I'm going.
Mhm.
I'm gonna put on his show, man. I'm gonna put on my spacesuit. What's that project he got? What's the little kid thing he created? What agency is that little kid thing he created?
This is about SpaceX.
Yeah, SpaceX or whatever. Man, give me one of them little jumper suits and put me
Space
on a rock.
Force.
Yeah, Space Force. Give me one of those, man. Put me on a rocket and get me out of here. Like I don't know, man. I couldn't accept it. I'll be honest with you. And that's a great question because I really
I'm
don't know.
not saying supposition. I'm saying it's proven. It's proven.
Okay, so if it's
There
proven,
was, yeah.
man, that's a great question because I really don't know how that, Carl. I really do
That's why
not.
I asked it. Because I'll tell you why I asked that question. I love truth. I have integrity. And one thing that I dislike about the two parties, that's why I don't belong to them, they're full of Kool-Aid drinkers. It's good when we do it, but when they do it, it's wrong. No, if something's wrong, it's wrong if my mama do it.
I mean, I agree with you, and I mean, so I'm along your lines. Like as I've gotten older, I don't really look at two parties because both parties, uh, the black community is underserved and underappreciated, and they only come to us every 4 years when they need something. So I'm with you on that. And just in, I mean, there's been so much fraud that's going on. You go back to Gore, Hillary. I mean, we've seen it, and it's just like I don't know. Not to say what I mean, I don't know. I might even just say, this is to be expected. Like, shit, here we go again. It's just the norm. And I'll be honest with you, I don't like right now. If there wasn't a pandemic, I'll be honest with you, I'd probably get my passport and move to another country. Like, I mean, but again, I really just like that's a great question, but I really don't know how I would feel. I don't know if I would be not to say heartbroken, but distraught. But I feel like I would just be like in my mind, would be like, okay, here we go again with this ish again. It's like it's the regular. I'm just being. I don't know. That's a great question. I really had to think about that one, man.
All right. Mr. Wilson, if it was proven that there was a conspiracy.
Yeah, so that is amazing. We've proven voter suppression for so many years, and no one said I'm going to concede to anything. So that's a tall order to ask me to concede of something being proven for voter fraud when voter suppression, even during this election, there was voter suppression. So I say I would concede when they concede to the voter suppression that happened during this election and that's happened in elections in the past.
Got it. Mr. Wright.
I think that's the answer of the day, to be quite honest. Because even in Florida, you have all those ex-felons that wanted to vote, but you're going to say because you owe court costs, but then you don't even have good record keeping to know how much they owe. But how many people owe taxes and they still voted? So I think that's good when they concede on that. I would just say, I think I personally, if I was in a place of power, I'd put up a fight. Like, because you've shown me that you're willing to fight to the end. Okay, well, let's have a recount of every state that you won. Like, sometimes you just have to meet ridiculous with ridiculous and stop trying to fight on a higher road because he doesn't play on a high road.
And believe me, that question was one just to throw it out there to see what you would say. I don't think we're going to find widespread. I think what happened was, I think the accusations were thrown out to go hunt for something. It was like a way to buy time, but time is quickly running out. On Monday, the 14th, these states are going to cast their electoral votes, and like I said in the beginning of the show, there's not too much you're going to be able to do about that. But on January 6th, when you have that special session of Congress to receive those votes, and Vice President Pence has to open those envelopes, I'm looking for the show to begin, and we'll see. So listen, brothers, we right at the hour and 20-minute mark. I appreciate your time. I want to go to a closing round of comments. If we maybe didn't hit something that you wanted to hit, or maybe you didn't get a chance to expound on something, please take this moment to do it. And any businesses that you may want to have, your churches, you want to promote something, here's your time to do it. We'll start with you, Mr. Dane.
Well, Carl, thank you. for having me. It was a pleasure being here tonight with you and these amazing gentlemen. I think this was a great topic. I believe through this dialogue and conversation, we were to cover a lot, and I think we all were able to touch on some very valid points. Um, as far as me myself, Dame D NYDC hosted the Two Mics Up podcast. Right now we're on hiatus. We'll be coming back sometime in the new year. Some more episodes, some exciting guests, some exciting features. You can check us out online at www.twomicsup.com. You can follow us on social media at Two Mics Up on Facebook, IG, and Twitter. And if you want to talk to me, stir up some trouble, you can hit me up on Twitter and IG at DameDNYDC. And again, Carl, thank you so much. I really appreciate this platform. Looking to have you on our side real soon.
I've been looking forward to, and for y'all to know, Two Mics Up is a great show. When they come off a hiatus, you have to check them out. They are also him and Alyssa Middleton. They get it done. I absolutely love their shows. I'm looking forward. And since you're all on hiatus, you make sure that you keep your lines of communication open. I'm gonna get every drop out of you while you're free.
Hey man, I'm gonna do the same, man. You've been a big help. Really, you've been a big help and a big inspiration, and we love what you're doing in the community as well, man. Really appreciate you.
Much appreciated, Mr. Wright. The closing comments, sir.
Thank you once again for having me. I think this was a very enlightening conversation because I learned quite a bit, and I even was opening some tabs of some things that I heard so I can watch and learn, research a little bit more. So thank you again for having me. Nothing really major to say. I just want everybody to have a very safe holiday season. We see that numbers are spiking across the country. Even I know one of Carl's favorite movies, Friday, to see that, Tiny Lister, I believe, passed and is believed to be, after experiencing coronavirus symptoms. People, please really guard yourself, stay in as best that you're able to. I know here in Virginia, they're rolling out a little tighter restriction that isn't undue. And I don't think anything that would be rolled out should really be complained about if it's going to spare a life. So please be safe, enjoy your family, but if you have to be distanced, do so. And I also say, like I said last time, be on the lookout in Virginia, especially. 2017 is an election year. We're getting ready to elect a new governor. So let's keep our eyes open, do your own research, find your own facts, and know your own truth as we look towards the new year. God bless.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Wilson.
Thank you, sir. I really appreciate it, Mr. Armstrong, inviting me. I'm normally a person that like to be in the background. I am a minister, so I do preach sometimes. So that can come out. But normally I like to do things in the community, but do it in the background. I'm not normally on podcasts or shows, streaming or anything like that. I'm passionate about helping others and injustices that are going on. I just want to tell people to be proud of yourself. Be proud of you going to the polls. Be proud of the fact that you voted, and be proud of the fact that your vote counted. We do know why this election was won by Biden. It was won because the Black vote came out. And so I just want everyone to know, just be proud of what you've done. Be proud of yourself. Now that we've done that, it's our job to continue to hold the new administration coming in to task. The things that we know that we need in our community, we have to hold them to task. One last thing, I just want to encourage everyone, no matter where you're located, no matter what state, city, county, town, get involved in your local elections. Get involved in your local community, boards, committees, whatever you can, because those things affect you immediately. And with that, I say, as Mr. Wright said, God bless, and I really appreciate being here.
Thank you. I want my audience to know, number one, I love you all. You have been very supportive to Carl's Conversations. Your questions and your comments, they help make a very exciting show. I want to say to Mr. Gwill, if you're still on, and those who may think and vote like Mr. Gwill, you're always welcome. And if you want to come on and express your views, hey, I'm open to that. I don't just invite people who may think and vote like I do. All right. I want people to know that Carl's Conversations is a safe place to have difficult conversations. All right. I want to thank my panelists, Mr. Marlon Wilson, Mr. Timothy Wright Jr., Mr. Damon. What's your last name, Damon?
Cunningham. I'm the black sheep of the family. Everybody else is Irish. I'm
I
the
ain't
black
messing
sheep
with
of the
that.
family.
I'm not messing with it. That's what you said, not me. But I want my audience to know I have a high degree of respect for these men. I don't send invitations to people who I don't think have the acumen or the intelligence or the ability to communicate. I think very highly of all of my guests, and I'm very grateful that these men took time out of a Friday evening. They could have been doing a whole lot of other things, but they took some time for me, this show, and for you. And let me tell you something, gentlemen. What you added to the show tonight has been tremendous. I love having these conversations. They're not always the easiest to have, but we're doing it. At least Mr. Wilson need to come on shows more often. Your knowledge and perspective is much appreciated. I'm glad you said it, Alyssa, because I was going to say it, and I said, no, I want to put him on the spot. But since you already did, Marlon, I hear you, brother. I know you like to operate in the background, but I'm going to make you tell me no. I will be in contact. If you tell me no, I'm going to have to accept it, but I'm sure going to make you tell me no. All right. I want to make a couple of announcements before we get out of here. Tomorrow morning, from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. at Mount Ariat Church, 1112 Garrisonville Road in Stafford, there will be free COVID-19 testing. If you go to my Facebook page, the Heart for the Community Facebook page, or the Carl's Conversations Facebook page, you'll see a flyer for this. And they do want you to pre-register. There is a link to pre-register, but they will take walk-up people to be tested. Totally free to the public. Listen, for those of you who don't know, the COVID numbers in Stafford are horrible. They're even more horrible for the Black and Latino population. The group Enough has been out in the community tonight, last night, and Wednesday night, putting out flyers and informational packets to let the Latino and Black communities know, not that we're anti-white, we're not, but the Latino and Black communities have been very negatively hit, and we want to get these people, these are vulnerable population, out to get tested. Also coming up on Thursday, I believe that's the 17th, which is next Thursday, we're going to have a town hall. We're going to have people from the Virginia Department of Health. We're going to have some local politicians. We're going to be talking about, this is the Stafford Health Initiative. We're going to be talking about COVID, vaccinations, and everything else. So we really, really want you guys to be present. I want you to know about these things. Please don't be ignorant to it. I think Marlon and Timothy hit on it. Now I'm scrolling to my page because there's another flyer I'm trying to get to. There's a coat drive, part 2 of a coat drive. Part 1 was last week. We're going to be collecting coats and warm clothing at the Stafford Courthouse. We're also going to be collecting over in Fredericksburg. If I get myself to this flyer, I'll let you know. I tell you what, I'll put it up on my page. I'm going to put it in the comments of this conversation so you guys can see it. 2 very important activities tomorrow in Stafford. These are not the only 2, but these are the 2 that I'm involved in. So if you have warm clothing, scarves, coats, gloves, stuff like that you would like to donate, there'll be a collection point at the Stafford Courthouse. There's another connection point in Fredericksburg. I'll post that information. Please, please, please make sure if you're in Stafford and you have not been tested for COVID, or you know it's time to be tested again, Mount Ariat Church on Garrisonville Road. It is free to the public, 9 a.m., 12 p.m. We're looking to see you there, okay? On behalf of my guests, who I respect and I love, you brothers are awesome. I appreciate you. You have added greatly to the show. I keep telling y'all, when I start making some money, I'm going to give you a little bit. Now, I'm on record about this. I said, I'm going to give you a little bit. Give you a little bit.
I'm going to come look for you, Carl.
Okay, but look, I give you a little bit, but I'll work you for a lot.
It's all good. It's all good.
All right. So, audience, we thank you so much. And until next time, I say, may God bless you and may heaven smile upon you. You have a great evening.